quickly learned that science is the easy part of resource management, that managing people was the more challenging part. And with the BLM, everything is multiple use.
Welcome to the Pulaski Planner, where we share the stories and wisdom of the professionals who manage our public lands. I'm Katherine Kirshner, your guide to building a retirement as adventurous as your career. Let's get started.
Thank you for joining me. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. Why don't we just begin by giving you the floor, and you can do like a high-level intro of your career for us, if you don't mind. And I understand, I know you're retired now, but I'll give you the floor.
Okay. How far back do you want to go?
Your call.
All right. Well, I went into college thinking I was going to be in aquaculture, growing fish or oysters. About halfway through that, I decided I didn't want to be a farmer for the rest of my life. And I got into the fishery science side of things, left college with a couple different options, ended up starting with Alaska Department of Fish and Game. And spent several years working with them and some research biologists with National Marine Fisheries Service out of Juneau, Alaska. Switched over to working at the research lab for a couple of years on projects. And then life changed, got married, had a kid. Wife wanted to quit work for a little while, ended up leaving the research side and switching over to habitat management. Looks like the dog wants to join us in the conversation there. Mine's in the other room.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And joined BLM in central Idaho, thinking that I'd be there for a year or two before I went back up to Alaska. And quickly learned that science is the easy part of resource management, that managing people was the more challenging part. And with the BLM, everything is multiple use, and trying to figure out how to conserve or protect resources. In my case, riparian issues there from permitted uses was challenging, and it came to learning about people. Luckily, I had a boss who was really good at that, kind of took me and some others under his wing and gave me some different perspectives. And I never thought I would leave Salmon, Idaho, but after 21 years there, moving into management, I decided that life had changed again and it was time to move on. So I spent a couple of years in our headquarters back in Washington, D.C., working in the recreation program, which I'd overseen as a manager, but wasn't a specialist. But again, I had a bunch of specialists working for me. My job as a manager was to help them understand their workload, their priorities, where things fit into the bigger picture, manage communication up and down the chain, working with the other programs, because recreation, happens on all lands, regardless of status, and has impacts to all resources and all uses. And so it just kind of fit. I had a boss who was great, but really didn't like spending time working up on the hill or any of those things, and also had a 2-hour commute. And so I ended up doing a lot of things that people in my position as a deputy didn't normally do. Spent a lot of time working with the director, travel with him some, spent a lot of time up at the hill at events, meeting with constituencies. And but after 2 years back there, I was ready for a change again, back to where out west, our decisions impact people's lives. And what I got to do back there was fun and unique and challenging, and got to help put the recreation program in a different place, and put the public, people like you, provide a resource that didn't exist before, which was all of our rec sites on an online map, so you could see what was out there and where to go and what to do, rather than having to fumble your way around. So that was kind of fun. Yeah. But then I got an opportunity to come out here to Arizona At first, I said, no, I really don't want the job because when I come back out west, I want to be back in the mountains and rivers of the west like I was used to.
Yeah.
But I sort of fell in love with the desert down here. It's such a unique ecological landscape here at the confluence of three deserts and two major mountain ranges. It's so ecologically diverse. I mean, one landscape I worked in had, over 24 federally listed species. And so many different landowners, both on the federal, state, and private side, that getting anything done required a skill set that went beyond the technical skills we learn in college. And it's just such a unique place. Tucson is a fun, vibrant community. Didn't expect to like living in a city of 1 million people, but the food scene is great. The art scene is incredible. I've got 11,000-foot mountain out my back door. I can be up on in half an hour. I can be down in the plains and grasslands and wineries of southern Arizona in an hour. It's been fun. And it gave me a chance to, in this role, here's a district manager that I left in January this year. It gave me a chance to bring all those skills that I put together over 30 plus years into play, knowing the natural resource science side of things, knowing the policy side of things from the state or headquarters level, and being able to look across programs and agencies even and help bring some massive partnerships together. So it was a great opportunity to end the career.
Nice. Would you say you're comfortably retired here in this location? Do you feel like you're going to be moving, or you sound pretty happy?
We've been talking about what's next. The past few years have been extremely busy. I let out some planning efforts that hadn't been accomplished in 20 years, got those over the finish line with community and agency support. Had a mom whose health was poor, so I ended up spending a lot of time taking care of her, and was really head down focused in the job. That's never really looking beyond that. My wife works remotely and will be working for a few more years, so we have a little bit more flexibility now, and we're starting to talk about what's next.
Nice. Well, thank you. That was a lot, and it sounds like a super exciting and interesting career. Okay, so Alaska, Idaho, Arizona, DC, that's a lot of locations. Let me ask, I was really interested when I was looking at your career, the intersection of, riparian areas and your experience with fish hatcheries and such. Did that come into play in Arizona, or is there not a lot of could you talk about that for me?
Yeah, it did, partly from the science side. Because in Idaho, where I was working, we were a very small office, 400,000 acres of public land, but we had 300 miles of perennial stream. It was the headwaters of the Columbia River Basin, so we had all the listed salmon, steelhead, bull trout. But most of the public lands, both the Bureau of Land Management and Forest Service, were disconnected from the major river systems because of irrigation. It was flood irrigation. They took out water high in the mountains, diverted it across country out onto the lower basin and private fields down low. And so it didn't matter really how good we made the public lands piece of it if the fish couldn't get there that we were doing the work for. So we ended up spending a lot of time working on the basin as a whole. And when you're a federal biologist and you get the invite from a private landowner, especially a multi-generation rancher who hates the federal government, out to work on their private land, help find solutions that benefit both of us, you're making progress. And it was those lessons learned about finding ways to bring people to the table around a common viewpoint. Everybody wanted the salmon back, but they didn't understand how their ranch that had been operated for up to 7 generations, who had salmon on it when their grandfather was there, they couldn't understand how a change they could make would mean anything to the fish when there's a hydropower issues and all the other issues in the lower basin. but we still found ways to make the system better. And when the fish were coming up, they came to those places now. And so looking across those areas, and my first manager there, he taught me that it didn't matter how good you were, how great your plan was, how good your documentation was, how good your science was. If the people across the table from you didn't own where you wanted to go, even a 40-year career in one office, which is pretty rare, is a drop in the bucket against people whose livelihoods depend on it and have been there for generations. But if I could convince you to make a change that benefited both of us, you and your family would keep doing it until I talked to you about something different, and I could go work on the next problem.
It sounds like your career, you mentioned like a lot of multiple use issues, and you must have successfully navigated that numerous times. What kind of insight would you share with people who are maybe younger in their federal career about how to navigate those like different interests amongst those parties and how to kind of lead and communicate with them so that, it's a win-win situation?
So I spent a lot of time talking about that. I did a lot of leadership coaching, training, mentoring, helping teach our leadership development classes for the Bureau. And it really boils down to getting you to understand what I need and me getting to understand what you need. Because, you may be a rancher and I disagree with what you've done for the past 50 years, but has anybody ever sat down and talked to you about why you're doing it? Or they just said, you're a federal land permittee, here's your permit, do what I say. I know how I work. I work better if somebody engages me in a discussion and helps me understand the whys. I will always give more if I know where we're going. And so I've chosen to approach my conversations with the public land users, other agencies, even, in that manner, seeking to understand first, what do you need, Catherine? What are you after here? So I can look to connect some common values, and maybe they're not yours and mine, but I know somebody who I share a common value with over here, and they share one with you. So now we can have three people in the discussion and bring more resources and ideas and maybe more solutions that you and I couldn't think about to the table. And that's something, bringing it down here to southern Arizona where you think, oh, there's water, fish. Well, actually there is. And one of the things I helped do was put a plan into place for the San Pedro Riparian National Conservation Area, which was the first congressionally designated riparian area in the country. And it had been a point of contention for 30 years since its creation. The federal government hadn't followed through on what they said they were going to do. There was a lot of players. The communities and past uses were essentially drying up the river and the aquifer. And I had a little piece of the pie under our jurisdiction that I was responsible for, but had no way to impact the uses that were impacting me unless I could have a conversation with you about what you're doing on your piece of the pie and how we can work together. Because everybody wanted the river to function. They were just arguing over how much water it should have. I'm like, I don't care how much water it has exactly. Let's let the lawyers figure that out. Let's you and I talk about how we can get it to work again. Because you need it for recreation or community sustainability or endangered species or something. And I need it because Congress said so, but really I need it because I care about these things. So let's find a way. And we did.
That's really impressive. Yeah, I mean, water is such a common issue. We're in Montana up here, and a lot of people think the Mountain West doesn't have as many issues as say like a desert area in Arizona, but there's plenty of water contention, especially with all the development that we've seen since COVID. And like you said, being able to bring everybody to the party and at least get each other to listen is really an accomplishment.
Yep. And the biggest thing there is go into those conversations being willing to listen, be open. Don't go in with the agenda up front. And it's going to take you and I time to build a relationship before you're willing to listen to me, especially if you hated what my agency has done for the past 30 years. Right. We have to build a relationship.
Well, so now you're on the other side sort of you kind of wash your hands a little bit of certain issues, but what do you see for the agency as like some of the bigger issues that they're currently tackling or that they're going to need to tackle in the near future?
Oh, wow. The natural resource issues are not going to go away, and they're only going to get worse. During my career, with the increase in population, the increase in use on public lands, recreation had a massive jump during the COVID years and didn't go away. But we also saw a different type of user out there and their expectations. The conflict between historic uses and some of the newer uses today. I also see, a changing workforce of people who didn't necessarily grow up on the lands, but came in with the love of natural resources, but without the fundamental understanding of what life is like in a small town. And the fact that every decision you make, you're going to see the person who took the brunt of that at church, at the grocery store, on the ball field. You're coaching with them. That is reality. It doesn't mean you should change your decision, but it should help guide you in how you choose to implement or discuss your decision. That's it. I also see, potentially even bigger than that, some of the changes that are occurring under the second Trump administration. Don't want to get political, but public land management and public land as a whole is there was a lot of question on value of it during the first push for the funding bills this year. The outdoor recreation community, hunters and anglers especially, really voiced their support and got a lot of that off the chopping block. But I've seen an incredible number of experienced leaders midway through their careers either pushed out the door over the last 10 months or walking away because they don't believe that they have the ability to influence any decisions anymore. Decisions are being made in Washington, D.C. and being told down the line, and nobody locally has a say. The people that I talk to are frustrated. They don't have any money anymore. They don't have any guidance. They don't feel valued. And it was already challenging enough to keep morale up in an organization that never had enough money or resources to do what was expected of you. The constant changes, the internal conflicts between resources, the use side versus the protection side, trying to balance out with the external. So I'm, honestly, I'm a little worried about all of our natural resources agencies, Forest Service, Park Service, BLM, especially those like the BLM, the Forest Service that have more of the extractive side. We're becoming a political football, and it's hard to do anything well when you don't know how much money you have or which side of your mission you're going to be implementing tomorrow.
Absolutely. Those are very real. Thank you for sharing that.
That was becoming the case no matter which party was in control. It was becoming more and more political.
Fair enough.
Which begs the question about what does the public want from their public lands in the future? That's being decided by elected officials in D.C. right now without any real discussion, it seems like, on what we are. The Forest Service had their mission created a long time ago, and it's been changing ever since then. The latest version of the BLM mission was created in 1976, and the uses have changed a lot since then.
If you could speak to, an imaginary colleague about, staying in and fighting the good fight, or if they're like, they're thinking about getting out, looking for a different career path. Would you encourage them to stay in and fight the good fight, or can you understand that desire to, put your efforts into something else?
I can understand both sides. I could always understand that, and that was something, as a leader and a mentor, your goal was to help people be better no matter where they want to go. If I was mentoring you for 5 years and moved you up in a management position in my office and had a future idea for you there, and you decided to go somewhere else because that's what your families need, my job was to support you and help you get there. And so that I've had both sides of those conversations with those that don't feel like it's worth it anymore. They don't have any comfort anymore with the security of their job, which was one of the biggest benefits. It's like, okay, well, how do you set yourself up for success moving out the door then? For those that want to stay, it's what can you influence? What can you feel good about doing today that doesn't relate to anything else going around you? And how do you have that conversation to shift your energy there with your supervisor, your boss, your colleagues about doing something that makes you feel good about what you're doing? I mean, most people in public land management entered it because they cared about something outside, a tree, a plant, a critter, having fun on a mountain bike, you name it. That's why they were there. And so you have to, be cognizant of that as a supervisor and a leader is helping people find value in what they do. Or again, setting you up success if you want to change. If you want to change roles, you want to change organizations, want to get out of public service as a whole. How do I help you succeed and where you want to go?
That's really powerful insight. Thank you. Yeah, I always think it's really important to try to focus on our, area of control that way, regardless of what's happening around us, we still have some power in our circle. Let me kind of shift the conversation a little bit. Is there a project that you're currently engaged in that is like energizing you as you tackle it? I know retirement's kind of newer for you, but you've had some time to. What's keeping you busy lately?
Oh boy, what's keeping me busy? Part of it is catching up on all the things around the house that didn't get done in the last few years when I wasn't home, on the road a lot, or just too exhausted taking care of other things. I got a new toy for my wood shop, got a lathe, so I've been learning that. Been spending time with friends and colleagues, several of which have retired recently too, doing things outdoors, hunting, traveling, exploring, those types of things. But also starting to do a little bit of bringing something back to the community too. When I retired, my wife and I were in discussion about how long I would stay in retirement before I started doing something else, and I had a lot of opportunities kind of lined up. A lot of those fell through with some of the cuts in federal grants and changes in this administration's direction, but I've kept quite busy. But I was recently appointed to a new advisory board for Pima County here in Arizona, county of about 1 million people with a really good track record of conservation and intentional conservation that offsets economic development. That means their community can be sustainable, but also protects the open space that's important down here, the endangered species, the rare riparian areas. The county recently reorganized and put all their conservation lands, their outdoor space, their recreation parks people, and their cultural use under one organization. And now they're developing a strategic plan for the next 10 years. And so I was recently appointed to that and actually have a meeting not too long after this with that group as we start our efforts. I'm also meeting this week with the University of Arizona Law Clinic, where students are learning how to engage with the federal government, particularly on natural resource issues, and sharing some of the lessons learned that I had dealing with lawyers on both sides down the path. So those things are fun and engaging as well.
It does sound like you have a lot keeping you busy. Cool. Okay. I'd like to end the call with a question that kind of goes across, that works for all agencies. In your work with the Bureau of Land Management, what is a tool that you found essential for your work and why, if you had to pick one tool?
Effective communication. And that was internal, external, up the chain, down the chain, being able to understand what people need and communicate that effectively to the people who need to hear it.
A great answer. Thank you, Scott. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I wish you a fruitful time with that lathe. That sounds really interesting. I think that is a very fun hobby. We have 4 kids right now, so I don't have time for hobbies, but maybe in the future.
Yes, I've got 2 kids, both up. One, my oldest son and his family are in Idaho Falls. Youngest son and his fiance are in Salt Lake. We'll be seeing them, I guess it's next week as we head up for Thanksgiving. We always have them come down here to the warmth of Arizona, but we're going to go see them and my oldest son's family in their new house this year. So
that sounds
looking
very
forward
nice.
to that. Mm-hmm.
Well, you guys have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you for your time today.
You're welcome. And yeah, happy Thanksgiving as well.